It happens so quickly, almost every time. Someone says it. "Let's take a group photo." The words float into the air like something casual, harmless, ordinary. Everyone lights up. There's laughter, movement, shuffling closer together. People know exactly where to stand, who to lean toward, how to pose. But you freeze for half a second. It's such a small pause that no one ever notices it. You smile, you move eventually, but there's always that brief, invisible hesitation. That instant where your mind goes quiet and something inside you resists. You can't explain it, even to yourself. It's not dislike. It's not shyness. It's a strange feeling, like being pulled into something you didn't choose. A moment where your body says yes, but something deeper whispers wait. As you walk toward the group, you already know what's coming. The bright smiles, the quick jokes, the practiced warmth that fills the air. Everyone looks happy. And you do too, because that's what this moment asks of you. But beneath your calm expression, there's a quiet tension that no one else can see. You feel it when you stand too close, when your shoulders touch others, when the laughter becomes a little too loud. It's not the people that unsettle you, it's the feeling of being absorbed. The sense that, in order to belong in this picture, you have to leave a small piece of yourself outside of it. You tell yourself it's nothing, just overthinking, just habit. But when the camera rises, you can feel the shift inside you again. Your face arranges itself automatically. Smile, eyes open, chin up. You've done this 1,000 times. And yet the moment the shutter clicks, it feels like something false has just been preserved. You look at the image later and it's fine. You look fine. Everyone looks fine. But there's an emptiness you can't describe. A sense that what was captured wasn't presence. It was performance. And you start to wonder, why does something so small make me uneasy? Why do I feel this subtle pressure every time I'm asked to appear as part of a group? You begin to realize it's not the photo itself. It's what it represents. A moment of forced belonging, where your individuality must pause so you can become part of the picture. It's the unspoken rule that togetherness should look a certain way. Smooth, bright, agreeable, even when it's not completely true. And deep down, you know you've felt this before, not just in photos, but in life. Moments where you joined the crowd, spoke the right words, smiled at the right time, and left feeling like a piece of you stayed behind, unheard. That tiny hesitation before a group photo. It's not about appearance. It's a signal, a quiet internal protest. It's the mind's way of saying, I want to be seen, but not reduced. I want to belong, but not disappear. And maybe that's why you linger at the edge. Not because you reject others, but because you're protecting something fragile, the truth of who you are when no one's asking you to pose. You don't plan it. It just happens, automatically, smoothly, like muscle memory. When you step into the group, something in you shifts. You become a version of yourself that fits the moment. You laugh a little louder. You stand a little straighter. You find the expression that keeps everything easy and balanced. It's not fake. It's survival. Carl Jung called it the persona, the face we show the world to function, to be accepted, to keep peace. Everyone has one. It helps us move through society, blend, connect. But sometimes that mask becomes so familiar that we forget it's even there. And in moments like the group photo, the mask tightens, just slightly, as if to say, behave, belong. Don't stand out too much. You obey it without realizing. You smile, not because you feel joy, but because the situation requires it. You mirror others, not because you want to, but because it feels safer that way. Then the photo is taken, and what remains is a version of you that feels strangely distant. It looks like you, but somehow isn't fully you. This isn't about deception. It's about adaptation, a quiet, constant adjustment to fit invisible expectations. You sense it in meetings, social events, even conversations, the part of you that knows how to play the role. But beneath that performance, something quieter stirs, a question you can't silence. If I always wear this mask, who am I when it comes off? You might notice it later, when you're finally alone. The relief of no longer needing to hold the shape of someone acceptable. That deep exhale that feels like returning home to yourself. And this realization isn't a problem. It's awareness. It's the first step toward authenticity. To see the mask not as a lie, but as a tool. Useful, but not meant to be permanent. Here are some tips to reclaim your authentic self. Pause before you adjust. The next time you feel yourself shifting to fit in, take one slow breath. That pause is where choice begins. Notice what feels draining. Some situations leave you energized, others leave you hollow. The difference tells you when you're wearing the mask too tightly. Reintroduce small truths. You don't have to be completely open, just slightly more honest. Say what you actually think once in a while. Watch how it feels. Don't confuse harmony with disappearance. Getting along is good, but not if it costs your individuality. True belonging doesn't require erasing yourself. The group photo isn't dangerous. It's symbolic. A mirror showing how often we trade authenticity for acceptance. The goal isn't to reject the group, but to learn how to stand within it, fully seen, fully present, without the mask closing in. You've probably felt it, that subtle tension that creeps in when you're around a group. It's not loud, not hostile. It's soft, polite, and strangely persuasive. Everyone moves in rhythm, says the right things, reacts the right way, and slowly, you start to match them, without even meaning to. That's how sameness begins, quietly, invisibly. You blend a little, smile when they do, hold back when they don't. And it feels harmless, even comforting. Until later, when you realize how much of yourself you had to tuck away just to keep the peace. You tell yourself, it's easier this way. But easier isn't always better, because each small moment of adjustment, each silence, each false smile, pulls you further from your center. Carl Jung might say this is the price of ignoring individuation, the process of becoming yourself in a world that constantly asks you to be someone else. And the more often you trade truth for comfort, the harder it becomes to remember what authenticity even feels like. You might not realize how often this happens, so let's make it clear. You might be losing yourself in the group if you leave social settings feeling strangely tired, not from noise, but from effort. You replay conversations, wondering if you sounded right. You catch yourself agreeing just to keep harmony. You stop sharing what you really think, because silence feels safer. You feel invisible even when surrounded by people. That quiet exhaustion you feel after? It's not social burnout. It's self-betrayal fatigue. You've been editing yourself so carefully that even your body starts to notice. And here's something worth remembering. You don't have to rebel to be real. Authenticity isn't about standing apart from everyone. It's about standing within the group without dissolving into it. Try this instead. Next time you feel the pull to blend too much, pause. Ask yourself, Am I agreeing because I believe this, or because I don't want to stand out? That small question is powerful. It's the beginning of subtle non-conformity, the quiet art of staying yourself, even when the current is strong. You don't have to fight the group. You just have to stay awake inside it. That's what real belonging feels like. Not the comfort of sameness, but the safety of being seen as you are. There's a quiet weight that comes from always fitting in. At first you don't notice it. It hides beneath the smiles, the nods, the "sure, no problem." You move through groups smoothly, agreeable, easy to be around. But somewhere underneath, something begins to fade. You start losing the small impulses that make you you. The opinions you softened so no one would disagree. The emotions you swallowed so no one would look twice. The thoughts you edited before speaking, just to stay comfortable. That's the hidden cost, the slow erosion of self. And it's not dramatic. It doesn't break you all at once. It just dulls you, day by day, until you forget the sound of your own voice. You might even call it peace, but deep down, you know it's not. It's quiet, yes, but it's not your kind of quiet. It's the silence of self-censorship, the stillness that comes from never stepping out of line. Carl Jung once suggested that what we suppress doesn't disappear. It waits. It waits beneath the surface, collecting all the parts of us that were told to stay hidden. And the more we ignore them, the heavier they become. That unease you feel in group photos, that restless discomfort when everyone seems connected, but you feel detached, that's the weight of what's been left out of the picture. You might be feeling this without realizing it, so let's name it. Here's how the cost of forced belonging often shows itself. You feel disconnected even when surrounded by people. You start doubting your instincts, wondering if they're too much. You avoid attention because it feels like exposure. You crave solitude, not because you dislike others, but because it's the only place you can be unedited. You can't remember the last time you said what you really thought, without softening it first. But here's the truth you might need to hear. You don't need to break away from everyone to find yourself again. You just need to start reclaiming the small, honest pieces, quietly, intentionally. Try this. When you feel that quiet pressure to conform, pause for a breath. Instead of asking, "What will they think?" ask, "What feels true to me right now?" You don't need to announce your difference. You just need to live it, gently, consistently, without apology. Belonging isn't supposed to cost your identity. It's meant to include it. And the moment you stop forcing yourself to fit perfectly, you begin to attract the kind of connection that doesn't demand you shrink. Because the truth is, you were never meant to disappear into the picture. You were meant to bring contrast, depth, and something unrepeatable. That hesitation you've always felt? Maybe it wasn't resistance. Maybe it was your mind's way of saying, "Don't vanish here." At some point, you stop chasing every circle. You stop standing at the edge of every group, trying to find the right position, the right expression, the right place to fit. You begin to realize, not every gathering is meant for you. Not every space deserves your presence. It's a strange kind of peace when that realization arrives. Quiet, calm, but deeply freeing. You no longer fear being left out. You start fearing being absorbed. That's the shift. You move from trying to belong everywhere to choosing where your presence feels natural. You start noticing where you can breathe, where silence doesn't feel like exclusion, where your differences aren't something to manage, but something to keep alive. Carl Jung might say this is the beginning of individuation, not separation, but integration. The moment you stop bending who you are just to stand among others, and begin standing as yourself, even if it means standing alone. You begin to understand something powerful. Belonging is not about being accepted by everyone. It's about finding the few who don't need you to explain your edges. You start noticing subtle things, the groups that listen without rushing to agree, the people who make space for pauses, the moments where you can just exist, without performance. Those are the places where your energy settles, not shrinks. And here's where real confidence grows, not from being seen everywhere, but from being known deeply by a few. That's what selective belonging feels like. Not rejection, not isolation, but alignment. Here's how to practice selective belonging in your life. Listen to the tension. Every time you feel yourself stiffen in a group, that's feedback. It's your inner compass saying, this space might not fit you. Notice where you relax. Authentic belonging always feels lighter, not heavier. Your body knows before your mind does. Redefine inclusion. It's not about being invited, it's about choosing where you show up with your full self. Let silence guide you. If being quiet around certain people feels peaceful, stay. If it feels like suppression, leave. Value depth over visibility. The world teaches us to be seen, but the soul thrives on being understood. You may still hesitate when the next group photo is called, and that's okay. That hesitation no longer means you're disconnected. It means you're aware. You've stopped confusing togetherness with truth. You've learned the art of belonging without surrender. Because the goal was never to escape the group. It was to return to yourself. To stand at the edge, if you must, not because you're afraid to be seen, but because you finally understand what being seen really means. You can play the part perfectly and still feel like something's missing. You can smile, laugh, blend, agree, and yet when it's over, you feel strangely hollow. It's a quiet ache you can't name, like two versions of you are living the same moment, one playing along and the other quietly watching from a distance. That's the split. The moment when your outer self, the one shaped for the world, stops matching your inner one. It's subtle at first, easy to ignore. You tell yourself you're just tired, overthinking, introverted. But if you listen closely, you'll notice it's not fatigue. It's separation. A growing distance between how you appear and what you feel. Carl Jung warned of this divide. He saw it as one of the deepest sources of unease in modern life, that the persona we build to function in society often drifts so far from the inner truth that we begin to forget which one is real. You might call it the cost of adaptation. But over time, it becomes a quiet identity crisis. Who am I when I'm not being what's expected of me? You've probably felt it before, after a group event, a meeting, a social gathering. Everyone else seems energized, but you feel strangely depleted. It's because you've spent the whole time existing in two realities. The outer one that speaks, smiles, nods, and the inner one that whispers, "This isn't me." You may even notice how your mind starts splitting small things too. What you say versus what you think. What you want versus what you allow. What you feel versus what you express. It's not lying. It's self-preservation. But the longer it continues, the heavier it gets. The human psyche wasn't built to live in fragments. The longer you suppress the inner voice, the louder it becomes. Not in volume, but in pressure. It starts showing up as restlessness, as burnout, as that vague discomfort that follows you even into calm places. And when you finally have time to yourself, it doesn't always feel peaceful, because silence exposes the gap. You start to meet the version of you that's been waiting underneath the social surface. And it's not always comfortable, because that version remembers everything you've muted. Here's what the inner split can look like. You feel unseen even when people like you. You overthink simple interactions, replaying, editing, adjusting. You feel guilty for saying no, even when it's honest. You crave freedom, but keep choosing control. You succeed externally, but feel disconnected internally. But awareness is the beginning of repair. The moment you notice the split, you've already started closing it. You can't fix it by rejecting the outer self. You fix it by bringing both sides closer together. Try this. When you catch yourself saying something that feels slightly off, stop. Ask yourself, what would I say if I trusted my own truth right now? You don't have to say it out loud, but even acknowledging it privately starts to bridge the gap. Each honest thought you allow, each small act of truth you practice, pulls the two halves back toward each other. That's not rebellion. That's integration. That's how you become whole again. Because the goal isn't to live without a mask. It's to wear one consciously, knowing when to remove it. To move through the world without losing the thread of your inner voice. And maybe that's why you hesitate in group photos, not because you dislike connection, but because part of you refuses to vanish into the surface. You've already sensed it, the quiet danger of becoming only what others see. So when that hesitation rises again, listen to it. It's not resistance. It's the self asking, softly, urgently, to come back together. You don't have to avoid photos forever, but you can change how you show up in them, and in life. Before joining, ask yourself quietly, do I feel genuine right now, or am I performing? Am I trying to connect, or to prove that I belong? If the answer feels heavy, pause. You don't owe your presence to every group moment. Sometimes protecting your inner truth is participation, just from a distance. When you do join, bring awareness with you. Smile because you choose to, not because it's expected. Stand how you really stand. Be there as you, not as the version that photographs well. Over time, that authenticity will show, not in pixels, but in energy, because real presence doesn't need to pose. There comes a point when you stop looking for the perfect place to stand in the picture. You realize there never was one. The group photo was never really about face or smiles. It was about belonging, about being seen, about trying to prove you exist among others. But now you see it differently. You understand that not every kind of belonging is nourishment. Some forms of connection feed you, others drain you. Some ask you to show up, others ask you to shrink. And in that understanding, something changes. You stop chasing inclusion as if it were survival. You start treating solitude not as eggs, but as alignment, because it's in the quiet, away from the group's noise, away from the posed smiles, that you finally begin to see the outlines of who you really are. Carl Jung often spoke about the journey inward, the slow, sometimes uncomfortable process of meeting your true self. It's not loud, it doesn't ask for attention. It simply waits for you to stop performing long enough to hear it. So maybe the next time you're asked to join the photo, you'll still hesitate. And that's okay, because this time you'll know why. That hesitation isn't fear. It's honesty. It's the quiet recognition that you no longer need to prove your place in the picture. You already know who you are, even if no one else does. And maybe, just maybe, real belonging doesn't happen when everyone stands close together. It happens when you can stand slightly apart and still feel whole.